Chapter 115. I think there's a misunderstanding. What about? At Milan's puzzled question, Alone's head began to spin. To be honest, he had no clue where to start addressing the ridiculous rumor. That Pina admires Marquis Palacio? Or that the Tower Lord Soleil Mikado has allowed his subordinate Pina to date him? No, isn't it strange in the first place that the Tower Lord is even granting permission for dating? Suddenly he thought this but soon convinced himself Alone. Soleil Mikado wasn't related by blood but was no different from a parent to Pina and her sibling, Philin. After all, it was Soleil Mikado who taught them magic as orphans. That is, Soleil has a reason to interfere in Pina's dating. No, that's not important right now. Alone opened his mouth to set the record straight. First of all, everything is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Yes, Pina Chrisin does not like me, and I have never received permission to date from the Blue Tower Lord. Oh, really? Yes. Milan expressed out at Alone's firm nod. But I heard that the Blue Tower Lord definitely said so. Wasn't it none other than the Blue Tower Lord who had given permission? Must be some misunderstanding that made such a rumor spread. Is that so? Yes. I've seen the Blue Tower Lord recently, but we didn't discuss anything like that. There was definitely a misunderstanding. Okay, I understand. With repeated denials, Milan stepped back. Well then, I have to get going. I have things to do. Yes. I'll see you next time. Sure. They parted after a light farewell. What? I clearly heard such rumors. The words floated in the breeze, but Alone let them pass. It seems the magic industry still spreads that rumor. Evan also asked, surprised. Does it seem so? Baseless rumors usually fade quickly, don't they? Usually, yes. I wonder why this rumor is strangely resurfacing. But the Marquis has clarified it as a misunderstanding, so it should slowly subside, right? Despite that, I already clarified it as a misunderstanding among the nobles quite some time ago. Didn't Pina clarify it? Alone was puzzled. Given Pina Chrisin's nature, she would have immediately attacked the source of the rumor upon hearing it. After a moment's thought, Alone shook his head inwardly. It's slightly uncomfortable, but after all, a rumor is just a rumor. It won't be long before Pina is freed from the gossip. It's just annoying to go around clearing up misunderstandings. It's not like I can gather magicians to clarify such a trivial rumor. While Alone was thinking this, then, did the Blue Tower Lord really do something? The Blue Tower Lord? Yes. Actually, that rumor is quite old, but it's strange that it's flaring up again now. Evan proposed a hypothesis. Alone recalled the time he met Soleil Mikado. I don't think we discussed anything related to that, but I did feel as if he was up to something. He definitely had an unusually bright smile. I'll have to ask him the next time we meet. As Alone reflected on their conversation, he shrugged lightly. Honestly, meeting Heinkel was much more important to Alone right now. Therefore, let's figure this out later. For now, let's head up. He quickly moved towards the room he had been assigned. The library on the 38th floor of the central tower was originally a place with few people. Or to put it more precisely, it was a place that magicians hardly visited. Despite being a library, a place that magicians, who enjoy researching and studying, would love, the reason they did not come was simple, because of the alternative space. All the books here could be viewed as clean copies in the reading room on the 20th floor, instead of as old tomes. Thus, the existence of the Central Tower Library was really about its historical symbolism, being the original library built when this place was first established. And in such a place, a woman who had been there for an unimaginably long time. Heinkel, called the chalice of the beginning by magicians and also regarded as their idol, quite liked this situation. Whether before or after becoming a spirit, she didn't particularly like noisy environments. Of course, that didn't mean she shied away from people altogether. Being a sentient being with a perfectly intact mind, there were days she wanted to see others. On such days, she would roam around the tower, watching magicians and having fun. If she found a magician she liked, she would subtly lure them to the library to engage in various conversations and offer help. In fact, more than feeling satisfied with helping, she enjoyed the sense of superiority when magicians looked at her with admiring eyes after she imparted knowledge. Anyway, nevertheless, she quite enjoyed living alone in the empty library, leisurely reading books. I am here to see Heinkel, the chalice of the beginning. Yes. Clearly, just moments ago. Why has this guy come again? Heinkel almost screamed involuntarily at the sight of the man with his head bowed low, but she swallowed it back. Because the man in front of her was someone she really did not want to meet. What brings you to me? Heinkel smiled awkwardly. If those who knew her temperamental nature saw this scene, they would all either be shocked or burst into laughter. But the reason Heinkel had to be nice to the man in front of her was because of that behind Duke Palacio. Something tremendously sinister, absolutely not to be acknowledged, yet also not to be ignored. It was only now, during their second meeting and after having calmly assessed the situation, that Heinkel realized that the entity behind him was not attached to the man by his own volition. Nevertheless, the fact that Heinkel had to be nice to Alone remained unchanged. The entity behind could erase Heinkel's existence at any moment, even now. And she was aware that the entity had some kind of interest in the man in front of her. Regrettably, I have a favor to ask and have come for that. A favor to ask? Yes. Actually, I'm having trouble using an item you gave me. It was more like he had snatched it, not that he had received it willingly, but she still responded kindly with a smile. Shall we take a look at it? Understood. Anything else you'd like to ask for? Well, if possible, I would like to receive some teachings on magic, if that's feasible. Of course, I will pay. Even though Heinkel was inclined to be kind, she could not agree to his request. For Heinkel, who prioritizes her life above all else, it was very uncomfortable to continue staying in the same place with an entity that could take her life. Therefore, that might be a bit difficult. May I ask why? That's because? Heinkel, who was about to explain without hesitation, suddenly stopped speaking. Only someone like Heinkel, who had been staring at Alone, could properly perceive the eyes hidden within the hidden space behind him, suddenly bulging. Heinkel turned her gaze towards Alone as if to confirm the answer that was about to come. With Heinkel's mouth agape and frozen, Alone tilted his head slightly in confusion. However, Heinkel, from within the hidden space, noticed the eyes staring intently at her and began to sweat coldly. No, maybe I can help. Is that so? Yes, I can do it. Yes, of course. Thank you. Ah, no, come to think of it, it's not that difficult, Tilda. She hurriedly changed her statement. Only then did she feel the eyes in the hidden space withdrawing their presence. Ah. Why? Why? Why is this happening to me? She felt like crying. Meanwhile, although inwardly she was screaming, outwardly she wore an awkward smile. Alone, unaware of Heinkel's inner turmoil, thought. No, she seems much nicer than what I've seen in the games. What's going on? He was puzzled by how easily she had accepted his request. Maybe she had a different character originally, and something in the game made her change. Indeed, if one only looked at her appearance, she could pass for a girl if not for the giant wizard's hat she wore. Yes. She looks too young and fragile to be that cruel. Unaware of Heinkel's inner feelings, he concluded that her personality must have changed after some incident that was not explained in the game. I really want to run away, for real. Heinkel, struggling to hide her desire to cry, quietly whined. Meanwhile, at the top floor of the central tower. So, you want me to translate this? That's right. There were two men present. Parkline Agrelus, a magician of the 8th rank with red hair and red eyes, and Selene Mikado, both of whom held the position of Tower Lords. Why should I? Parkline, grinning lazily, frowned upon seeing Selene smiling leisurely. Because you're the only one who can translate these ancient languages. And why should I help you? Because we're friends. Parkline scowled. Friends my foot. I don't remember that. But we're here together now, aren't we? You only came because you said you'd pay for the artifact you borrowed last time. Did I? I want to strangle you. Parkline clenched his fist as if itching to do just that. Regardless, Selene remained calm. Anyway, please do me this favor. It's not that difficult for you, especially since you have the related artifact. And this time, I'll definitely give you what I promised. Parkline, not particularly pleased, eyed him. Make sure you keep that promise. He then turned his gaze to the parchment. Womb Tilda. As Parkline was surrounded by a scattering of magical essence, a round artifact, resembling an eyeball, rose from his pocket. He began reading the characters on the parchment as if scanning them. After a period of silence, Parkline spoke. The translation is done. What does it say? Saleem asked urgently, and Parkline responded. I leave my inheritance to the half-mage who never compromised, who never forgot the phrases. It doesn't seem to contain any grand secrets of magic like you might have hoped. Knowing that Saleem had been rummaging through ruins looking for clues to advance to the 9th rank, Parkline turned to him with a slight smirk, only to halt abruptly. Until just now, Saleem had been smiling, but he seemed deep in thought. Parkline was puzzled. All the while, events from their last venture flashed through Saleem's mind. Marquis Palacio casually opening the entrance to the hermit's hideaway, the eyes behind him stirring fear and curiosity, and the Duke quickly gathering items as soon as they entered the hideaway and then staring at a letter underneath for about a minute. And then, I leave my inheritance to the half-mage who never compromised, who never forgot the phrases. Upon recalling Parkline's translation of the parchment, Saleem concluded in his mind. Is Marquis Palacio that mage? Chapter 116. The term wizard is known to anyone who is a mage. Wizards were, in a way, the ancestors of mags, active during the forgotten era of gods. Each one was a powerful entity capable of twisting the laws of the world at will. However, beyond that, little was known due to the loss of information. Numerous relics and artifacts from the era of forgotten gods are still being discovered, but those related to wizards are surprisingly non-existent. What remains of the wizard's magic is now called primitive magic, which is not considered particularly appealing, as it was studied 100 years ago by a researcher. Silicaman, a 7th-tier mage, enchanted by the described wizards, spent an enormous amount of time with his students researching wizards, eventually mastering the use of ancient magic through their phrases and symbols. So far so good, but the problem was that the ancient magic they deciphered turned out to be more rudimentary than they had imagined. The alignment of magical power was inaccurate, making the manifestation of magic unstable and incredibly slow to emerge. Moreover, despite all these shortcomings, its power was disappointingly low. Despite successfully recreating the wizard's magic, it manifested incompletely, like an important puzzle piece was missing. The Academy ruled that wizard's magic was currently infeasible. Thus, among mags, it gradually became forgotten under the term primitive magic, and only a few of Silicaman's disciples, unable to let go of the illusion of wizards, continued to use one or two of the phrases they inherited. Nowadays, most mags are unaware that primitive magic even involves these phrases or symbols. However, for Saleem Mikado, this was not important. What mattered was the fact that Marquis Palacio was a wizard. Possibly, a wizard from the forgotten era who could help him advance from the 8th to the 9th tier. Of course, his speculation might be premature, but he was convinced of it based on a few clues. Marquis Palacio had effortlessly passed through a gate that no one else could solve, and seemed to easily interpret phrases that even he could not read. More than anything, it was that thing attached to his back, an entity that could entirely ignore the laws of this world, which he was with. Moreover, he had already used more than 5 phrases perfectly and delicately, like the magic of this era, something even the 7th-tier mage Silicaman could not perfectly replicate. It would be impossible for the Marquis, just over his 20s, unless he was indeed a mage from the ancient times. Looking at it this way, things I didn't understand when investigating him now make sense, Saleem thought as he recalled an incident filled with questions when he was investigating the Marquis. In just a few years, both the former count and the second and first sons died under mysterious circumstances, and the massive underworld organization under his command was wiped out in one day. Although rumors were rife at the time that Marquis Palacio alone was behind it, there were also many questions about him due to his young age and the fact that the huge organization, Avalon, which he commanded, was cleared in a day without any noticeable shape or movement. Saleem felt there was something odd about that. But if the assumption that Marquis Palacio was a wizard holds true, the underworld thugs would be mere bugs to a wizard who can freely twist and overturn the world's laws. So, did he steal a body? Or is it possession or an artifact? Or perhaps a reincarnation magic practiced in ancient times? Why is he hiding his identity? Is there something? No matter, it doesn't matter. Saleem Mikado, with eyes showing a hint of madness, resolved, I will befriend him without annoying him too much. I'll become friends and learn the magic. That's how I'll reach the 9th tier. He let out a creepy, inexplicable chuckle. This guy, why is he suddenly like this? Parkline, watching him, felt uneasy but showed a tiny bit of concern. Just as Saleem was engrossed in this peculiar conclusion, alone was showing Heinkel the Kalgunia's pact ring. It looks like it's just outright refusing to be summoned, doesn't it? What should I do in this case? The method to make it come out of the ring is simple. Instead of just pouring magical power into it, distribute it lightly and try inserting it only into the symbol. Following Heinkel's advice and channeling the magic only into the symbol, the ring began to tremble. For the first time, the summoning was successful, albeit very small. Who? Alone looked puzzled at the snake on his arm, which clearly seemed to be the receiver, Basiliora, but it was only a fraction of its usual size, perhaps 1/10,000th. When you want to conserve magical power and summon a familiar for conversation, this is how you do it. Such a call cannot be refused. Heinkel explained, resolving the question. However, that was only momentary. This damn human. Locking me in this ring. Release me right now. I don't know how to release you. How do you think I'll move according to your wishes? Never. There will never be a day when I respond to your summons or follow your words. Basiliora, tiny on the arm, appeared to foam at the mouth in rage. I didn't expect it, but the rebellion is stronger than I thought. Release me now. Basiliora continued to rant despite the situation. Anyone could see that he was determined not to listen. Honestly, he wanted to smack him, but since spirits can't be touched, Alone thought calmly. What option should I give him? He had prepared a great deal just in case of this situation with Basiliora. May I ask you one thing? Heinkel suddenly asked. Yes. Is the reason you came looking for me because of that ring, not just for guidance? I wanted guidance, but the immediate reason for my visit is indeed that. Could you leave it with me for a moment? This ring. Yes. I'll fix it for you. Her voice carried a thick hint of laughter. Would that be okay? Of course. It's not difficult for me. Then I would appreciate your help. Alone respectfully handed over the ring. Release me. I'm telling you to let me out, you primitive human. Come back for it tomorrow. She smiled and waved her hand. I'll see you tomorrow then. Alone bowed and left the ring with her. Filled with hatred from Alone's trickery, Basiliora, trapped in the Calgunia's pact ring, was seething not only with hatred toward Alone but also realized that the Thunder Serpent tribe had also played a role in capturing him and vowed to kill them all once he escaped. Release me, you empty shell of a soul. If you do, I will dash. Even now, his resolve hadn't changed, and he tried to confront the spirit in front of him just after Alone had left, but... dash. At that moment, Heinkel suddenly screamed out loud, freezing Basiliora's movements. Crack tilde! Basiliora witnessed books filling the space drop like rain due to the vibrations emitted by the spirit. Then, suddenly catching a wooden puppet that had popped up somewhere in Heinkel's hand. What is this suddenly appearing out of nowhere? Confused only briefly, Heinkel gripped what she held and lifted it. Why? Must I endure this? Crack! She slammed it down on the ground. The wooden puppet bent in half. However, it seemed not to be the end, as she picked up a thick ancient tome from the fallen books. Eek-car! She began to smash the wooden puppet with the corner of the book. Bang! Bang! Crunch! Thud! With each swing of the book, the wooden puppet caved in a bit more. Crack dash! Soon the head of the wooden puppet shattered, scattering fragments everywhere. However, Heinkel, apparently not satisfied, placed the puppet on the shelf and swung her fist at it. Thud! The wooden puppet made a creaking noise. Despite the violence, Basiliora found himself shrinking back at the sight of the half-broken spirit continuing to headbutt the neck area. Huff tilde! Heinkel, possessing a physical strength uncharacteristic for a mage, continued to obliterate the wooden puppet amidst the scattered books, breathing heavily. With those eerie eyes, Basiliora cautiously spoke up, that, first, calm down. Should I say it? Should I tell her? Basiliora hesitated. Despite being trapped in the ring, Basiliora was a god with tremendous pride. He began to wonder whether it was appropriate to use honorifics to a mere spirit. What did you say, you little? It was a mistake. Crunch! Heinkel grabbed him at the speed of light before he could even finish his sentence. Now, who do you think caused all this? With a chilling gaze. Before he could even be shocked by the fact that his sealed body was grabbed, Basiliora cringed under the fierce murderous intent. Yet, almost as if his pride was hurt by his own shrinking, he raised his voice. Whose fault? I didn't do anything. Heinkel's expression grew increasingly terrifying, and Basiliora hesitantly added, just a moment. The Archmage, with a sinister smile, gripped Basiliora tightly and moved towards the half-destroyed puppet. Wait just a moment. Yes, that's right. Our snake did nothing wrong. I think so too. No, wait. Hello? Right, it was my fault. Basiliora, realizing he was in serious trouble, desperately tried using formal speech. So, may I just let off some steam then? Is that okay? Heinkel wrapped her fist around his body like a belt and then smashed the puppet down. Wait. Let's talk, with words. We are not beasts, we are beings of intellect. Tilde. Basiliora's terrible scream echoed through the library. Until morning. The next day. Alone set out to attend a lecture by the Blue Tower Master. He wanted to listen to the lectures of the Tower Masters as Milan had mentioned the day before. Since he had to meet Heinkel at night, he had some free time during the day. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, but the reservation is already closed, and there are no more seats available, so entry is impossible. He couldn't attend the lecture due to all seats being taken. I didn't know there was a reservation. He briefly sighed as he watched other mags hand in their papers and enter. Perhaps, could I stand at the back and listen? No. Even though you are a marquis and a noble, this place is for everyone to study magic equally, so such unfair entry is not possible. Feeling disappointed, he asked just in case, but the firm reply came immediately. The response was so cold and somewhat brisk that he felt a slight dissatisfaction, but it was a fact he couldn't change, so he was about to turn back when, Marquis Palacio. Tower Master. Alone had a chance to meet the Blue Tower Master. Hello. Blue Tower Master. Yes. Just moments ago, the mage who had been wearing a cold expression now greeted Selene with eyes filled with admiration. Selene lightly accepted the greeting. No, why is your excellency here? Suddenly, he addressed Alone with formal speech. Feeling puzzled only briefly, Alone decided to answer the question first. I had some free time and thought I would attend a lecture. My lecture? Yes. Gasped Dash. This is a great honor. That your excellency would attend my lecture. At this, Selene grinned broadly, leaving Alone baffled. Alone knew that the Blue Tower Master didn't care much for authority but was also aware that when it came to magic, he was as stiff-backed as anyone could be. Come in. You there. Quickly, let him through. What? But the seats are all ready. Isn't it my lecture? Yes, but... Then what are you waiting for? Quickly, let him in. Because of this. Why is he like this? Alone was at a loss for words. The other mags queuing to attend the Tower Master's lecture also looked on with bewildered expressions. Chapter 117. Mellat, a 6th Order wizard and a professor at the Red Tower, involuntarily opened her mouth in shock at the scene unfolding before her. It was all because of what Selene Mikado, the master of the Blue Tower, had said. An honor. Despite hearing it herself, Mellat could hardly believe it. Selene Mikado, the Blue Tower Master, was known to be unusually gentle and kind compared to other Tower Masters or the future successors who would inherit his will, such as Penia. This made him very popular among the wizards of other towers. He was a person who did not hesitate to give advice and teachings freely. However, even the kind Selene held great authority and pride in his magic. An incident where he completely dominated the Purple Tower Master, who had belittled Selene's magic during a Central Tower meeting, was well known among all wizards. Was that all? There was also an occasion when the Green Tower Master had challenged Selene's lecture, leading to a forced 3-day debate until the Green Tower Master conceded defeat. Thus, although Selene was kind, he was proud of his magic and did not easily bow his head to anyone. That's why the current situation was so astonishing. Turning her gaze, she saw that other wizards were similarly bewildered and, confirming it was not a misunderstanding, stared at Marquis Palacio. His hierarchy was the 4th Order. While it was unusual for a wizard to use ancient magic, primarily primitive magic, there was nothing else remarkable about him. What exactly? Why is the Blue Tower Master making such a fuss? While doubts filled her mind, Marquis Palacio himself was also puzzled. Really, what is it? Alone, contemplating whether to ask or not, hesitated before being invited. Please come in. Is that really okay? Of course. How could I not make room for the Marquis? Before he could finish his thought, he was quickly ushered into the lecture hall. Please sit here. I could just stand at the back. That won't do, it's fine. This was originally my seat anyway. Thanks to Salem's excessive hospitality, he ended up sitting in the front row, feeling the piercing stares of everyone behind him. After the lecture ended, it was clear that attending Salem's lecture was the right choice. Magically, he had gained a lot. However, if someone asked if he wanted to attend another lecture by Salem, that would be difficult. While the content was good, Alone had to endure the intense glares from other wizards behind him. Even conceding to the glares, what about the laughter? Alone recalled earlier, specifically the burdening smile Salem had given him, which seemed to have a hidden agenda, making him leave the classroom with a troubled expression. How was the lecture? Suddenly, the source of his discomfort appeared. Alone was taken aback but quickly regained his composure. It was enlightening. I'm glad you liked it, Salem nodded, seeming genuinely pleased, to which Alone asked, but may I ask you one thing? Yes, go ahead. I remember last time you didn't use formal speech, so why suddenly? It was as perplexing as it was uncomfortable. Salem smiled warmly. Just suddenly felt a sense of respect. A sense of respect? Yes. Suddenly, why? Once again lost, Alone was about to receive an answer when a voice from behind interrupted. Salem, what the heck did you do to make everyone lose their screws like that? Turning around, Alone saw a figure he had never met in person but knew well. Parkline Agrelus was standing there. Hurry up, didn't you say you'd help with the magic this time? Aren't you already too busy? What are you doing here? As Parkline approached, visibly annoyed, he soon noticed Alone. You are definitely. It's nice to finally meet you, Lord of the Red Tower. I am Alone Palacio. Alone bowed his head slightly in greeting. Parkline let out an exclamation and then said with a slightly uncomfortable expression. I've heard a lot about you. You use primitive magic. Yes, that's correct. Alone was puzzled by his reaction. However, I've heard good things indeed. You also saved my daughter in the jungle recently, didn't you? Yes, but... Thank you. My daughter spoke very highly of you. Quite a lot actually, for over a week straight after returning. Through these words, Alone realized why he was behaving this way. This man, he's a doting father. Just as Parkline was about to add a few more words, suddenly. Stop! Damn it, you scared me! Salem shouted from the side. How dare you speak to Marquis Palacio like that? Apologize. Following this, Parkline was at a loss for words, with a look that seemed to ask if Salem had finally gone mad. Have you lost your mind roaming around the country because of your wanderlust for magic? Before he could continue. Tower Master, may I know how long should we wait? A wizard opened the door to the classroom and asked casually, then sighed heavily. Stop talking nonsense and come along. Keep your promises. Parkline turned to leave. Wait! Shouldn't we finish our conversation first? Marquis, is there anything else you would like to ask? Indeed, Alone had something to ask. Speaking of which, I recently heard a rumor about the tower, and I'd like to inquire about it. What rumor? I heard a rumor that you, Tower Master, have approved a relationship between me and Lady Peenia. Ah, that rumor. Salem nodded seemingly nonchalantly. If it's something the Marquis wishes, I see no harm in it. It's the right age for that, after all. In truth, Salem's thoughts were not so simple. A union between the Marquis and Peenia? It wouldn't just be a no harm, it would be perfect. But revealing such personal bias seemed inappropriate, so he said as much. Come on, follow me. We're just getting started. Without a chance for Alone to respond, Parkline pulled Salem away. And then. See you next time, Marquis. Alone watching Salem being dragged away with an unusually bright smile couldn't help but hold his aching head. Blue Moon's regular meeting. The Moons, who had been chattering until just moments ago, suddenly fell silent. The face of Yusha projected on the screen was unusually serious. We found those who tried to defame the Great Moon. The air rippled momentarily. Everyone quieted down as Haydn began his report. I will now explain. We have been consistently tracking an organization in our area, and we've located several places that were sending orders to lower-tier organizations. How many places? a total of 21, and we've confirmed that all of them are directly connected to the real brains behind the deformation of the Great Moon. However, we have yet to identify the head dot. After a brief silence. So, we just need to raid these organizations to find the bastard who tried to defame the Great Moon. The previously innocently smiling Seal Rang flashed a fierce smile, lighting up her golden eyes. Where are they? Continuing the discussion, Rhine asked. The locations vary. Based on the regions where the moons reside, there are 5 near Caliban, 5 near Laxas, 3 near Ashtalon, and 3 near Lartania. As Haydn finished his report, Yusha's voice echoed sharply. Did everyone hear that? Pass the information and start moving now. Same here. I'll do the same. There seem to be none in Colonia, so I'll head to Ashtalon. We just need to kill them, right? Make sure to get the information before you kill them. Yusha sighed lightly, easing the heavy atmosphere a bit, and then introduced another topic. There's another matter. Another matter? What is it? Raiden and Seal Rang reacted immediately. It seems the Great Moon needs specialty goods for the domain. Does anyone have a good proposal? Is he looking for something characteristic of the domain? It seems so. Me. Me. Seal Rang eagerly raised her hand. Let's hear it. I'll build a coliseum in the Great Moon's domain and I'll be the specialty product. Rejected. Oh. Seal Rang made a sulky face, but she did not argue further. Her idea was so off the mark that it was unclear where even to begin correcting it. You can't come yourself. We all have our own orders. Then. Specialty products, isn't it already decided? Deus's confident voice cut in. What is it? If the Marquis writes his autobiography, that solves everything. Another unusual suggestion sprang up. Times. Despite other moons making faces that suggested this was a bit too much, Deus seemed lost in thought, oblivious to the reactions around him. A self-written autobiography by him, that would be interesting. Like a classic novel, maybe I could even co-author to make sure it's... By now, Deus was deep in his own considerations, and the other moons, accustomed to his behavior, let him be and moved on with the agenda. Specialty products. Behind Seal Rang's dissatisfied voice, Raiden, stroking his chin thoughtfully, spoke up. I have a not-so-bad idea about this. Let me handle it. What is it? Since none of us are particularly good at that kind of thing, how about we bring in someone who is? Is there such a person? Yes, I've recently met someone. Raiden smiled slyly. Meanwhile, in the alleys of Laxas. Brother? Why are you shivering all of a sudden? It's like a sudden chill came over me. Ever since being dragged off by Raiden and nearly dying, only to return and save a life twice as joyously as before, Alexion the Appraiser was suddenly struck by an unknown chill. What's that? Filled with unease, he looked out the window. There, the blue moon was shining. At that moment, having seen the rising moon, Alone immediately set out to learn magic and greeted. Good day. Welcome. He encountered Heinkel in the library bathed in blue moonlight. Now, the thing you requested. Her face looked remarkably better than when they had met the day before. Despite sensing an odd tension, Alone prompted. Call them once. Then, if you'll excuse me. Following his words, Alone summoned Basiliora just as he had before by channeling magic into the pattern, and soon, Basiliora appeared. I will never act up again, I'm sorry, so please, I beg you, spare me from the fist bending, Seeing the somewhat broken Basiliora. I'm alive. I'm alive. I'll do as you say. I'll do anything you want, just subjugation or whatever, just please save me, Tilda. Hearing the desperate cries of the little snake, Alone was momentarily shocked. How about that? It worked out, right? Yes, it seems so. Smiling, Heinkel made a comment, and Alone broke out in a cold sweat. Somehow, he felt a little scared. Chapter 118. Alone, though unsure of exactly how she did it, successfully subjugated Basiliora with Heinkel's questionable help. He then received magical instruction from Heinkel. It was 5 days. Although it might seem a long or short time, it proved to be immensely beneficial for Alone. Heinkel wasn't handling words or sentences, but her magical knowledge matured Alone's magical abilities from a newly advanced 4th tier to a fully seasoned 4th tier level. Moreover, thanks to the issue of magic's cost-effectiveness, Alone was now able to use magic that he hadn't even thought of using before because he had learned a slightly more efficient way to utilize mana at this point. Of course, Alone wasn't a genius who could apply what he learned perfectly right away, and it took some time to properly implement it. However, even the minor teaching greatly reduced the consumption rate compared to the original magic, which was a significant gain. Most importantly, the biggest help he received was this. Her dash? It was right in front of him. Whoom! Alone saw the magic manifested before his eyes. Or more precisely, it was a visualization of the arrangement of mana. Like the DNA of genes, the mana was arranged in a spiral pattern forming a pentagram. Though it wasn't perfect yet, it was undoubtedly what he had wanted, and he smiled deeply within himself. This was precisely why he sought magical instruction from Heinkel and its result. I didn't expect to be able to implement it this quickly. The array broke down into tiny pieces the moment he lost focus. Still, Alone exhaled a satisfied breath. What he had created was one of those traits that magicians could use in psychedelia. A trait. In the game, when magicians reach the 4th tier, they can obtain unique traits for their magic using knowledge from the labyrinths, though these traits are limited to about 10 in the game. Nevertheless, Alone had managed to implement this trait without even visiting a labyrinth. It wasn't because he was special. In fact, anyone who knew how to incorporate the overall shape, order, and position of mana into magic could use it. Of course, unless someone discovered the trait by entering the labyrinth themselves, Alone would be the only user of this undiscovered trait. The labyrinth that gives the trait hadn't even appeared at this point. It had only emerged due to a fracture after one of the sins descended. With a little more practice, I might be able to handle it perfectly. Soon, thinking of a unique trait that would be very helpful to his current self, he became satisfied. Then, Marquis. Alone turned his attention to the voice of Evan. What's the matter? No, the conference is nearly over. I was wondering what you're planning to do. How many days are left? About 3 days, I think. Evan replied. Alone pondered for a moment. He had heard that he could stay for about a week even after the conference ended, but it seemed pointless to receive instruction now. Heinkel's teachings had indeed been an incredible gift to Alone. However, Alone could no longer receive instruction from Heinkel. Or rather, it would be correct to say that it would be pointless to try as the physical limitations, known as the mana hole, began to make Heinkel's teaching seem like merely good-looking unripe persimmons. So, he had gotten what he could, and now it might be time to try to increase his mana a bit more. Just as Alone was thinking of an artifact that might be near the central tower to slightly increase his mana. Ah, by the way, Marquis. There's a commotion outside. Evan suddenly changed the subject. A commotion outside? What happened? Well, not exactly an event, but just a lot of stuff happening. So what's the event? Evan dragged out his words before continuing. Recently, in the entire Allied Kingdom, mountains have suddenly started splitting open, or natural massacres are occurring in the territories of the Marquisdom. In the mountains or the Marquisdom's territories. Yes, there have already been over 8 incidents within a week. Particularly, Mount Temax near the Kingdom of Rosario has become a barren wasteland. The reason? The reason is still unclear. That's just the rumor going around. Is there any commonality among the places where these incidents occurred? From what I've heard, the locations are sporadic. A quiet sense of crisis was felt. Meanwhile, doubts arose. If it were the appearance of an outer god, it wouldn't burst sporadically in multiple places, Alone thought, tilting his head. But that was only for a moment. Still, I should probably look into it first. After delegating some tasks to Evan with the intention of moving himself, it seems I'll have to go out soon. He decided it was time to leave the magic conference. That night, as always, Alone was alone, practicing magic after receiving his instruction. Heinkel, watching him, had a strange expression. Initially, she had detested just his presence, but lately, Heinkel had grown quite interested in him. Partly because he followed her teachings well, but more so because the magic he used was very peculiar. Alone was using primitive magic that had nearly become extinct even in Heinkel's era. Even more, its use was so natural that it naturally aroused curiosity. No, to be precise, it was curiosity about the magic he used. I wish I could ask him to teach me once. Unfortunately, the master and disciple relationship had not been established between her and Alone. Given her personality, asking Alone to teach her something now would be a bit difficult. However, Heinkel's magical curiosity easily overcame her personality. Being a magician known as the Cup of the Origins, her curiosity was immense. In fact, she had mentioned something about phrases to Alone a few days ago. As soon as the word phrase slipped out, she had shut her mouth and the conversation hadn't progressed. It couldn't be helped. It was because of the entity behind Alone. Whenever she tried to discuss something related to phrases, she immediately looked up and couldn't ask about it. While teaching him magic, Heinkel had already figured out to some extent the eyes that Alone and others shouldn't be aware of. Alone was unaware of the presence of the eyes behind him. Or rather, it would have been strange if he had noticed. After all, that entity was invisible to anyone who had not opened their eyes, and one would need enlightenment and strength similar to hers to even glimpse what was hidden behind the scenes. And most importantly, the eyes themselves seemed to avoid being recognized by Alone when utilizing magic. Despite being a spirit, Heinkel felt the hairs on her body stand on end. For some reason, the eyes that refused Alone's recognition showed a clear reaction to phrases, if not entirely. Of course, it couldn't be definitively concluded that it was avoiding them, but her survival instincts violently warned her. Don't just casually bring up that topic. I think I'll leave for today. Oh, all right. See you tomorrow. Yes, thank you as always. She knew it wasn't particularly beneficial to touch on that subject. Yet her curiosity stimulated her wildly day by day. Isn't there a good way? After Alone left, she soon came up with an idea. Now that I think about it, the eyes don't react when he recites the phrase. If I don't ask directly, and he offers to teach first, maybe I could listen. She was aware of the low likelihood of that scenario actually happening. But by now, her brain had been overtaken by curiosity. How can I start the conversation first? She began to ponder. Suddenly, you damn old coot. I know you're hiding here, come out. A loud shout echoed throughout the library, furrowing brows. Who dares so recklessly? However, shortly after, she recognized the owner of the voice. Peenia Chrisin. For Heinkel, who wandered around the central tower whenever she felt bored, Peenia was a well-known figure among the magicians, her name frequently mentioned. Moreover, there had recently been rumors involving her and Marquis Palacio. Wait. It seems like a path is opening up. Peenia, if Peenia truly had that kind of relationship with Marquis Palacio. A small plan began to form in her mind. Peenia Chrisin was in a very angry state. That was because she originally had no intention of attending this magic conference. It was only recently that the magical supplies had started arriving properly, allowing her to resume the experiments that had been on hold. But the reason she came to the central tower was exactly because of damn old coot dash. A rumor started by the Blue Tower's master. Well, I didn't know you'd already finished greeting. So the vice master of the tower is getting married, you really can't predict life. Peenia gritted her teeth as she recalled the professors who barged in during her magical experiments and spouted such words. And the source of those rumors was none other than Salame Mikado, who usually shirked his duties onto her and wandered around carelessly without a care in the world. She couldn't just stand by. She had to punish that old coot immediately. Peenia rushed to the conference and, finding him already hidden, she scoured every corner of the building, eventually arriving at the library. And here. Who is there? She encountered a spectral girl. Or more precisely, the Cup of the Origins, Heinkel. The Cup of the Origins, Heinkel. Who Tilda, it's curious that you know my name. At the affirming voice, Peenia was so startled that she froze, forgetting her original purpose. Peenia had long been aware of one of the rumors related to the Central Tower's library about the Cup of the Origins, Heinkel. The content was simple: if you visited the library at night, Heinkel would appear and impart magical knowledge. However, hardly any magician believed it, as it made no sense for Heinkel, who should have died hundreds of years ago, to suddenly appear in the library. Nevertheless, Peenia had once visited the library at night after hearing the rumor. Because her childhood dream was to become a great magician like Heinkel, it was natural for Peenia to recognize Heinkel immediately. She had seen countless portraits of Heinkel in statues and books. State your name, a figure akin to an idol from her childhood, Heinkel prompted, and Peenia, staring blankly, startled, replied, Peenia Chrisin. Her heart fluttered at meeting someone she had long admired. However, Penia Chrisin. Ah, so you're the one rumored to have that kind of relationship with Marquis Palacio. W.H. Hearing strange words from the mouth of her idol, she could not help but furrow her brow involuntarily. Her tolerance had grown incredibly low due to being constantly troubled by rumors over the past few months. That's a huge misunderstanding, she reflexively attempted to clarify. There is one condition I have for you. If you agree, I will personally teach you magic. What? She fell silent at the continuing proposal. Exactly as I said. I have a favor related to Marquis Palacio. If you are as close to the Marquis as the rumors suggest, it shouldn't be too difficult. What do you say? Despite the oddity of the statement, you mean, teach me magic? Yes. From the Cup of the Origins. I don't repeat myself. She could not object. Memories flashed through her mind, all painfully linked to Marquis Palacio. From memories of creating potions for him to being dragged away by pirates while traveling with him. Days filled with stress from rumors involving the Marquis scrolled through her mind one by one. Honestly, Penia wanted to completely clear up the rumors related to Marquis Palacio. Her feelings remained the same even now. No matter the chance to be mentored in magic by the Cup of the Origins itself, Penia's stress had long since surpassed its limits. Therefore, instead of voicing what Penia really thought, perhaps, was there some mistake in the spreading of these rumors? She just curled the corners of her mouth into an awkward smile. The stress that had gnawed at her very being, tormenting her to the point of pulling her hair out for months, still could not overpower her magical curiosity. Chapter 119. The labyrinthine city of Lartania is divided into 8 sections, 4 inside and 4 outside. Among these, the eastern district on the outskirts of Lartania, colloquially known as the slums, is referred to by mercenaries and adventurers as the Street of Scum. Initially, it was merely a nesting ground for scavengers, but now it has become an area so treacherous that even the Lord of Lartania treads carefully. This district, adjacent to the city walls, might as well be outside the law due to the formidable figures hidden in its streets. Consequently, most mercenaries strictly avoid it unless necessary. The Street of Scum is dominated by 3 organizations. The first is led by Sue Road, head of the Jihadjikdan. The second, under the leadership of Kokan, is called Punkcal, located in the northeastern district, a gathering place for Lartania's refuse. The third, Salamandra, leads the Dark Mud, which, despite officially being one of 3 powers, effectively rules over the Street of Scum. Previously, these 3 factions had equally divided the district, but at some point, Dark Mud seized control, overpowering the others due to the unforeseen and immense strength of their boss, Salamandra. The other organizations do not understand how Salamandra rapidly ascended to a completely different level. They only witness Salamandra, exuding dark magic, tearing apart a swordmaster-level adversary from laxers with bare hands. Since that day, no one in the Street of Scum dares defy Dark Mud. Inside their headquarters, a scene resembling a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood unfolds. Everywhere you look, inside buildings, outside on the streets, the ground, the sky, the exterior walls, the main gate, corpses are all that can be seen. A unique aspect is the massive golden pipes piercing through the bodies, creating chaos like a jungle gym, gleaming under the blue moonlight. Salamandra, the leader of Dark Mud, looked nervously at the being before her under the clear blue moon. Her green eyes sparkled behind her as a woman, or rather, a high-ranking member of Lartania named Rhine, issued a command, "Restore it." The moment the command was given, the golden pipes moved at incredible speed, seemingly melting into nothingness and erasing the macabre jungle gym. As a rain of corpses began to fall, creating a blood flower, Rhine, seemingly pleased with the power bestowed upon her, nodded repeatedly, saying, "Well, it seems all the nuisances are gone now. Shall we have a talk?" She smiled at Salamandra, who furrowed her brow unknowingly, glanced at Rhine, and suddenly turned to flee, certain that he could not overcome her presence, at least not yet. Upon deciding, Salamandra entered the building without hesitation and rushed to the basement to use that against the formidable opponent. Upon reaching the basement, she quickly opened a box prepared for this day, her only hope, her lifeline. Unfortunately, as soon as she opened the box, she could no longer reach out her hands. All she could do was watch as a golden pipe, which had killed all her subordinates, burst through her heart from behind. Oh, this is troublesome. I shouldn't kill her. As Rhine's voice, dripping with regret, became a funeral march, Salamandra instantly died. Licking her lips as if disappointed, Rhine approached and noticed something. What's this? Her voice echoed faintly in the dark basement, spotting a vast amount of abyssal entity soaked in Salamandra's blood. Lately, Evan had nothing particular to do. What could there possibly be to do at the central tower where the magic conference was ongoing? While alone didn't particularly restrict Evan's movements, allowing him to wander around if he felt bored, he had chosen not to do so recently. The reason was simple: since a week ago, the number of magicians clinging to Evan had increased exponentially. If this attention had been purely due to his looks, he would have been ready to enjoy it. Concern? What's that? Evan enjoyed being in the spotlight. Unfortunately, the reason was different. It was due to the head and deputy head of the Blue Magic Tower being associated with Alone. Evan only had to think of stepping out of his room to recall the magicians swarming him, each offering enticing artifacts or relaying messages to the Marquis, hoping to establish a connection through these offers. It seemed as though their lack of social skills, developed from being cooped up in the tower focusing solely on magic research, made them oblivious to his rejections or ignorance. They clung to him even more, chattering like penguins. Honestly, Evan had no clue what Alone was up to that caused such a stir. No, it doesn't seem like he's doing anything. Of course, he knew that Alone wasn't particularly active. Essentially, Evan was just accompanying Alone, who didn't engage in anything unusual during their travels, except maybe eating sweet potatoes for over 2 weeks without getting tired of them. But given the circumstances, Evan couldn't help but suspect Alone might be up to something secretly. Alone, being who he was, would only sincerely feel wronged if asked about it. Although it was hard to tell with his expressionless face, having served him for almost 10 years, Evan had learned to read some emotions through his impassiveness. So, after days of staying indoors, Evan finally went out, walking inside the magic tower. He figured enough time had passed for the rumors to have died down. Shortly after, he felt satisfied, realizing his judgment was correct. As he walked around, the magicians only glanced at him instead of crowding around, leading him to believe the gossip had been quelled. Just as he was starting to enjoy his leisurely tour of the tower, he encountered someone. It's been a while. Oh, Phelan? Yes. Evan ran into Phelan Chrisin, whom he had met in Laxas. Initially aloof, they had developed some friendship while traveling together in Laxas. What brings you here? A magician attending a magic conference? I'd like to say there's nothing unusual, but that's not why I came. Then? I was dragged here. Dragged? By whom? By my sister, because of the rumors. Ah. Evan immediately understood Phelan's words. Is she very upset? Evan had heard from Alone that Penia Chrisin had spoken harshly about Alone. Phelan paused for a moment, then spoke. I asked her just in case. And? I got slapped. Oh dear. It's a bit harsh to say, but she's become quite violent, said Phelan, his voice tinged with fear. Evan noticed that the respect Phelan once had for his sister during their time in Laxas had significantly faded. This indirect evidence of the hardships Phelan had endured at Penia's hand stirred a sense of sympathy in Evan. So, she came here because of that rumor. Exactly. She said she'd come to find the head of the tower, who'd been spreading those rumors, and have a word with him, or rather, give him a piece of her mind. It sounded like a misunderstanding. So could the deputy have come alone? She decided to bring me along thinking the head of the tower might hide. Oh. Realizing he had been drafted into a search party, Phelan felt momentarily relieved that his sister wasn't around. So, have you just arrived? No, we got here late yesterday. My sister went to look for the head of the tower, and I started from the first floor with others today. She should be arriving soon. By the way, where's the Marquis? He's probably somewhere in the tower attending a lecture. But considering how angry she got over a mere rumor, she must really dislike him, Suddenly, they heard murmurs among the magicians and saw Alone in the distance, reading a book he hadn't seen before. Behind him was Penia Chrisin, watching him with a serious expression. Penia, over here, Phelan called just as he spotted her. Marquis. Ah, hello. Evan and Phelan saw Penia, who had just been looking serious, approaching Alone with a bright smile and a nasal voice. At that sight, Evan doubted his own eyes. Deputy. Hey, don't call me that, just Penia, Marquis. Penia's sudden shift to coquettishness baffled all the magicians present. What? Phelan, who had just been about to call his sister, was at a loss for words, his mouth agape. Thud. In such an absurd situation, a droplet of saliva dripped from Felin's mouth. "Has my sister gone mad?" he muttered, unable to comprehend the situation. Penia does not like alone. It was a well-known fact. From the beginning, there was no reason for her to like alone, and she was stressed out whenever rumors related to him spread. Wasn't the very reason she came to the tower to find and deal with the Blue Tower Master who had spread those rumors? However, the reason she was now showing a bright smile to Alone was, naturally, because of Heinkel. She turned her gaze to the sky. Although invisible to other magicians, Penia could clearly see Heinkel, in spirit form, looking down at the situation, as if to confirm that Alone and Penia were indeed involved. This realization prompted Penia to throw herself at Alone and act nonsensically. Despite the immense stress it caused her, she was eager to receive teachings from Heinkel, who was treated like a hero among the magicians. Therefore, she asked Alone with a desperate smile, "Why are you looking at me like that, Marquis?" The recipient of her nasal voice speech, Alone, was internally bewildered by Penia's sudden approach, as the Penia he knew would never act like this. So he wondered, did she eat something wrong, and looked at her seriously. "Why are you acting like this all of a sudden?" "Ah ha ha ha, what do you mean all of a sudden? We've always been like this, haven't we?" Penia replied. "Haven't we?" What a strange syllable that was. While Alone was shocked behind his expressionless facade, the rumor that the Marquis Palacio and Penia Crissin had been involved, which had been violently squashed in the Blue Tower, began to resurface. Was it true that they were involved after all? She must be too embarrassed to speak. If the Blue Tower Master himself acknowledged it, there must be no mistake in the rumor. Thanks to Penia twisting herself in flattery to learn Heinkel's magic, the rumors reignited. "Cardinal, there's a new rumor about the Marquis." "Yes, what is it, Cardinal Sergius?" "A rumor has started that the deputy of the Blue Tower and the Marquis Palacio are really involved." "Oh, that rumor, wasn't it debunked last time?" "Well, this time it seems not to be just a rumor. In fact, several witnesses have come forward at the Magic Conference." "What?" Just 3 days later, the rumor about the Marquis Palacio reached the ears of the Cardinal of the Holy Kingdom, who was paying attention to such matters. As Yusha's fingers brushed against the texture of the paper, she felt the familiar touch of the stationery used for sending letters. Chapter 120. Parkline, the master of the Red Magic Tower, was fundamentally indifferent to rumors. He found exploring antiquity far more enjoyable than indulging in gossip. However, it wasn't that rumors didn't reach his ears. Specifically, the rumor that Marquis Palacio and Penia Crissin are involved in a very intimate relationship recognized by the Blue Magic Tower Master was consistently heard by him. In fact, given Parkline Argulus's personality, no matter how often he heard or verified the rumor, he remained uninterested. Recently, however, Parkline had been paying attention to the rumor about Marquis Palacio and Penia Crissin, which he would usually ignore. The reason was, Selene Mikado. Seems like you're having fun. Is that so? Well, if you say so, it must appear so. Selene, who seemed overjoyed, expressed his exhilaration with his entire body. He knew when this excitement had started. It was after the rumor about Marquis Palacio broke out. Indeed, since then, Selene, just before entering lectures, always wore a smile and hummed a tune with a bounce in his step. Sometimes, it seemed like he had sold the authority of a Magic Tower Master so casually that even his hips swayed. The exact reason for his behavior was unclear, but a guess was possible. Selene Mikado might seem difficult to approach at first glance, but he was an easy person to understand. There was only one factor that determined his mood: magic. He was always happy when he solved a magical problem, and unhappy when magic didn't go as planned. Other events? Selene didn't express much emotion about anything other than magic. Whether the Magic Tower was destroyed overnight or if the deputy of the Blue Magic Tower was so frustrated that she came running to kill him, Selene rarely showed any emotional response unless it was about magic. Anyway, Selene's recent activities in seeking clues to ascend from the 8th to the 9th tier were well known to Parkline, so guessing why he was excited was easy. He must have found a clue to move from the 8th to the 9th tier. And the clue likely involved Marquis Palacio. There were several reasons for this assumption. First, Selene, fundamentally indifferent and devoid of political or power hunger, focused solely on magic. He wouldn't be thrilled merely by Penia's relationship with the Count. Second, it was due to Selene's recent behavior towards Marquis Palacio. He's been treating him like royalty. Lastly, combining the content of the letter he had interpreted and the use of primitive magic by Marquis Palacio made it easy to deduce. The guess that Marquis Palacio held the key for Salame Mikado to ascend to the 9th tier was easy to reach. From there, it was even possible to speculate whether Marquis Palacio was a magician as noted on the parchment. Since the moment Salame began trying to cover up any discussion of the Count, Parkline had been more than guessing, he was certain. There was definitely something about Marquis Palacio. This was precisely why Parkline had been listening to the rumors recently. Naturally, he was also very interested in reaching the 9th tier. Not just interested, but profoundly so. Not only him but all the Magic Tower Masters harbored a desire to reach the 9th tier. After all, the Masters of each tower had ascended to their positions through a blend of curiosity, desire, and genius. Therefore, he Master of the Red Magic Tower. It's been a while. To secure his gains, Parkline was quicker than anyone to meet alone, regardless of what might be hidden. If he openly asked, there was surely something to be gained. That coat looks warm. This coat? Yes. But it's quite chilly now. When it's hot, and when it's cold, it's cold. Anyway, I'd like to give you a gift. Would you accept it? A gift? Parkline naturally pulled a dark blue coat from within his robes. It was similar to what Alone usually wore but had black fur trimmings at the edges. It's an artifact coat I made myself. It's enchanted with subspace magic, and the coat itself adjusts the surrounding array to facilitate magic use. It's a very fine coat. Yes. Moreover, it has a built-in artifact that, although mild, maintains a constant temperature inside. What do you think? It's a very nice coat, but why are you suddenly giving this to me? Parkline laughed heartily in response to the Marquis's emotionless inquiry. Well, my daughter has often received help from you, so it's a token of gratitude. Then I will gratefully accept it. Good, let me know if you need anything else. Thank you for your consideration. Yes. Leanne also sends her regards. Although the coat was expensive, for a Magic Tower Master like him, making several was not an issue. His labor could easily produce as many as needed. Essentially, Parkline had given Alone a cost-effective gift. At that moment. Wait, what are you doing? Salame Mikado, who had disappeared right after the lecture, suddenly reappeared with a clearly anxious expression. And then? Marquis, did he perhaps mention anything about introducing you to his daughter? What? If so, it's definitely Penia. He blurted out immediately, without taking the time to think properly. At this, Parkline burst into incredulous laughter, unintentionally gaining a bit more firm conviction. So the Marquis really does have something. Clearly, he didn't think the Marquis had said that out of concern for Penia. While Parkline felt a strange pleasure from his newfound certainty, be careful with your words, Salame. There's a limit to my patience. He warned. The clue to the 9th tier was insanely precious to him, but that didn't mean he intended to send his precious daughter to some grim fellow, even if it meant plunging into the depths of a fiery magma pit. However, separately from that, Marquis, I will offer you something even better. This is the potion I've obtained to give you this time. Count, I just realized there's something I haven't given you yet. With these words from Salame, a strange battle had unwittingly begun. In recent days, Alone had been incredibly busy. More precisely, his evenings were particularly hectic because of a need to meet with Heinkel. The reason was an event near the central tower that could uniquely enhance one's magical powers. In the game, it involved solving simple magical diagrams, where intelligence above a certain level allowed one to click a mouse to gain magic power. Alone, who went to the lake's labyrinth for this task, was taken aback by the unexpectedly challenging magic difficulties. To be more precise, the magic was basic, and it was more accurate to say he was solving puzzles within the labyrinth itself. As a result, for over 4 days, Alone neglected searching for Heinkel and instead went to the labyrinth every night to solve puzzles. During the day, he wandered around the Magic Tower, pondering puzzle solutions in his notebook. Ideally, he would have preferred to address the rumor that had spread a few days earlier due to Penia's audacity, but regrettably, that too was impossible. Ironically, the reason was Penia herself. Clinging to him as if she had eaten something wrong, she recently had not been in Alone's sight. Moreover, the last time he saw Penia from a distance, he witnessed her making a bizarre scream, wooga, and then jumping out of a window from the 18th floor. Alone decided to focus on solving the puzzle until the end of the conference. That was, until this situation arose. Alone looked ahead. In front of him, two masters of the magic tower were stacking gifts on top of a book as if performing some sort of feat now. He couldn't even see ahead. It's not that I dislike gifts. Absent-mindedly lifting his gaze, he saw a mountain of gifts that had grown as tall as him. All of them were fine things. Even the coat Parkline first gave was a very attractive artifact for him. Surely it should be, Marquis. Look at this is exactly dash. Marquis. This artifact, you see. Alone suddenly craved sweet potatoes. Many nobles gathered at the ball hosted by the Commolan ducal house. They were mingling in the lavishly decorated hall. Among them was Duke Edgar, arguably the most powerful noble within the current Ashtalon kingdom. Duke Commolan, it's been a while. It has been a while, Duke Edgar. He greeted the host of the ball, Duke Commolan. I always feel like you really haven't aged, exactly like the old days. That's a nice compliment. Compliment? I really mean it. As the head of a faction, he often spoke in ambiguous terms, but this time, he was genuinely sincere. The face of a young man untouched by time. At least to Duke Edgar, Duke Commolan didn't seem to have changed much from 10 years ago, still maintaining the youth of his mid-20s unlike Edgar, who had gained more wrinkles. What trickery could possibly? Just as Duke Edgar was pondering this question. Duke Edgar. Yes? First of all, let me say thank you for gathering here. Duke Commolan suddenly greeted him. Well, is there really something to thank? No, I really appreciate it. Why? Duke Edgar answered perplexedly. Usually, for nobles, how many people attended their hosted balls was practically a show of their authority, so it wasn't strange to express gratitude. In other words, the greeting in itself wasn't odd. However, it's only not strange when it's a one-time courtesy. Repeatedly expressing thanks like this was odd. As suspicion arose, Duke Edgar saw it. Duke Commolan's hand gesture. Seeing him form a seal with his index and middle fingers, Duke Edgar cocked his head. It's because you all gathered like this that I have less trouble. What? His expression darkened unwittingly, and the next moment. Vexation. As Duke Commolan's voice uttered. Pop. Edgar Duke's head burst open. Not only his. The head of a young lady who had been smiling just a moment ago. A knight guarding other nobles. A noble enjoying tea time at one side of the ball. The heads of all living beings present at the ball exploded. Then, in the middle of the ballroom now adorned with red blood. Thump! Duke Commolan, brushing off the blood stuck to his hair, walked towards the door of the ballroom with an unruffled expression. Let's begin. He signaled to start to a dark elf in the darkness. Yes. The beginning of a great cause. A salvation awaited for hundreds of years. 2 days later. After completely solving the puzzle in the labyrinth. An outer god has descended. Alone heard such news from Deus.